So just a couple of housekeeping items, and then we'll get straight into the presentation. If you haven't been here before and you're new to this Revit user group, welcome and thank you. Hopefully you found us through the Meetup site or colleagues of yours and you have signed up. It's important to sign up and be on Meetup in our SVP because that's how we account for our food, and that's also how you get into the running for a raffle later on. We've got a couple of gift cards to give away. My name is David Diarza. I am currently the board president for SeaRUG, and I wear a couple of other hats. And we've got a pretty nice show for you today, so I'm going to just get right in it. And I like to try to get off the podium here as quickly as possible and let the sponsor and the presenter take over, which is going to be a little awkward today because I'm the sponsor, so we'll see how that goes. More on that in a minute. So today's agenda, we're enjoying some wonderful lunch courtesy of Anna Gockenauer. She has this contact over here in Seattle. It's a small business. Everything's made from scratch. They really provide a wonderful lunch, and if you have anything that you need to cater and you want to send some business their way, I'm sure that Lana would be happy to hook you up. I'm going to do a little bit of a presentation on builderbox.io and tell you guys what that's all about, and that's today's sponsor. And we're going to have a presentation on Dynamo. And if you've looked at our Meetup site, you'll know that Dynamo is one of those topics that people are becoming more and more interested in. In fact, somebody asked, is there a Meetup group or a user group for Dynamo? And I think that the radio silence on the channel spurred somebody to action, and they actually created a Dynamo user group. So look that up on Meetup, and I expect that a lot of you guys here probably have some cross-reference there. So we're going to take a look at Dynamo, and I'll let Jason get into it later, but I believe that there's some of the usage of Dynamo getting data in and out of Revit, and I mean, Dynamo can do a lot of things, so we'll get a little bit of a sample of what it can do today. And like I said, at the end of the meeting, we'll have a little bit of a raffle, so stick around. I want to thank the sponsors for 2017, those that have signed up thus far. We've got some recurrent folks coming. We've got some people that have been up there before. They're no longer there, at least not yet. I'm trying to put a little bit of pressure on them to show up. But we are shaking things up a little bit, which I think will open up opportunities for sponsors a little bit more. In the past, we've had a rule that if you're a SeaRUG member and you come to this meeting, you should be able to apply what you see here when you get back to your desk without having to buy anything else. And that is a pretty novel idea. That's a pretty good concept. But we realized as Revit grows and as the BIM community grows, we've struggled with that because there's a lot of things that you can add on to Revit, not just software, but workflows and ideas that augment Revit. And let's face it, there are not that many people that are interested in Revit out-of-the-box picks and clicks. What does this feature specifically do? We'll still do some of that. There has to be a balance there. So this year we're actually changing it so that if a sponsor, like say Unify, for example, has a product that is an add-on to Revit, and they can make the presentation, maybe 70% Revit-centric, but they show something that actually brings you value as a Revit user, we're going to allow them to do that beyond the marketing presentation. So hopefully that opens the door for Assemble Systems and Bluebeam and people that have wanted to be involved in the past and have struggled. I want to give a quick shout out to our board of directors and a quick note of a sad departure of one of our board members, Mr. Sean Burke, our social media chair, heard about Brexit and he thought that sounded like a great idea, so he moved to London to work at the MBBJ office there. So we wish him really well, but he decided that he didn't really want to be engaged with having to tweet from London what we were doing here at SeaRUG. I think something about the time change, 8 hours ahead. He's probably a good 3 beers in by now. So anyway, these are the folks that put some effort into what these presentations look like and into keeping our relationship with the library going so that we have this wonderful venue, which I can tell you we've got relationships with Miami, South Los Angeles, and New Orleans solidified right now, and nobody has a room as nice as this or a projector as bright. So we're really lucky and we really enjoy our relationship. So these are the folks that kind of make this possible. A couple of upcoming events, and if you, by the way, know of anything that you think the group should know, you always feel free to contact me through Meetup, and I will try to put this up here. In fact, this particular slide got up there 2 hours ago, so it's never too late. There's a New Frontiers in Construction conference at SeaRUG, which is over at UW at the Sandpoint campus. I'll be going to that. If you are interested, look them up. The URL is over there. Come find me later if you don't feel like writing it down. It's just kind of long. Also, there's another AEC hackathon happening on that same weekend after that, also there at Sandpoint. That venue over at UW is really great. And what I'm going to talk about in relation to BuilderBox today is very much about the story of what the hackathon is. So I'm looking forward to sharing that. And also there's another AGC BIM forum coming up in the spring. This one's in San Diego, and what better place to travel to. So look them up, AGC BIM forum, and if you're interested, just Google it. They've got lots of information online. A couple of job opportunities if you need to get your side hustle on, or you need a main hustle. Cochran Electric's looking for a BIM coordinator for large projects. So it looks like this is not a detailer position, it's a coordinator position, which is great that they're doing that. Brown and Caldwell, they're looking for an electrical designer. Again, if I run through these too quick and you don't jot down the information, the phone number, the email, come find me later. I'm happy to share it. MLA Engineering is looking for a Revit modeler. And there was a lot more meat on the bone on this announcement, but I couldn't fit everything in here. So I think that this is a structural engineer that wants a Revit modeler to participate in design coordination and design model creation. So if that's up your alley, look him up or come find me later. And then I got a message from somebody that runs a marketplace and is interested for somebody to teach Revit. So if you are a Revit guru and you are interested in that, please feel free to contact Dallas and see what that's all about. And like I mentioned, a couple of $25 Amazon gift cards here at the end, so stick around. Now, normally this is where I would get off the podium and I would thank our sponsor. And I would say, that it's my pleasure to host SeaRUG and buy you guys lunch, but I've been lying all this time. I'm always using somebody else's money. Today I actually literally bought you lunch. I paid for it. Which is exciting for me, and I want to tell you what this is all about. Maybe I should just get into it and maybe take about 10 minutes tops and then pass it on. And the reason why Jason is here, by the way, to do a presentation on Dynamo is because this is not Revit-centric at all. So I realize that I cannot do a full presentation for you on this. This is something aside, and I need to bring somebody else to give you the technical content. What the heck is BuilderBox? It's basically a solution to a problem that I had, and I want to tell you the story of how it came about. I'm sure that by now you've noticed that the last thing that you need is another cloud app, because everybody that got laid off during the downturn found somebody that had a computer science degree and created one. And it's incredibly fragmented, right? So why do I think that there's going to be anything different here? Well, hopefully I'll convince you that this is worth looking into, and then I'll show you the pricing, and you'll say, oh yeah, obviously. So maybe I should just get into the features one by one, and I'll only take about 3 minutes for each one of these. Just kidding. I'm not going to talk to you about features. This is what it does. Yeah, so this is a collaboration, planning, communication tool. Yeah, what the heck does that mean, right? So rather than try to tell you about features, I don't want you guys to look into BuilderBox for your business, because I don't believe that people buy things based on what they do. They buy things based on the fact that they believe in what the company's doing and they have some kind of connection and they understand it at a philosophical level. So that's what I want to talk to you about. I'll show you a little bit about what it does, but more importantly to me is that you understand where this came from. And that, of course, starts with silos. I have to. No good presentation on BIM can skip the silo slide. And yes, I hear the chuckling. I've been guilty of this. And if you have not seen a silo in a BIM presentation, you probably have not been doing BIM for very long, or you haven't been to many presentations. I realized I was wrong. The first thing that people say when they talk about BIM, oh, we got to break down the silos. That's what happens when you break down the silo. And I've been guilty of using this very image on another slide where I was trying to convince people to break down the silos. What you really need is actually a bunch of really good grain elevators. Because when you have grain all over the place, you end up with a mess. And that is what we have in our industry. You know, we keep talking about building information modeling, and then they'll say, oh, the I is the important thing. Well, yeah, that's great. But you know what? Going back to that grain spilled over the place, we are an industry that is extremely information rich, but we are dirt poor when it comes to knowledge. Turning that information into actionable knowledge, into data that you can make a decision based on. We are really, really bad at that. We're a very fragmented industry. Something like 80% of companies in the AE space or AEC space are like 25 employees or less, something like that. I think it was the World Economic Forum that just put out that number. And that was kind of shocking. So we've got all these different technologies and applications out there and systems, and they're really underserving those 25 and under, that market of small companies that cannot afford to go get a Procore. They cannot afford to get an enterprise solution. They're not interested in hosting a network environment enterprise solution. They just simply can't. So then we have a bunch of other solutions out there that promise to automate this, that, and the other. Well, you know what? Automation is actually kind of a dangerous thing if we're trying to automate the information creation. What we should be automating is the information management, which is what computers really do well. So, you know, again, getting back to that, we're information-rich, knowledge poor. The information in BIM, the knowledge in BIM, and by the way, I like to consider BIM, you know, building intelligence management rather than building information management. And part of the challenge of getting BIM out of the geeks in the closet and the dark closet in the office out to the greater project, and this maybe is more the case for construction firms than for design, but we still have a really hard struggle getting that BIM information out to the field, and it's because it's still like the purview of just models. People think of it as just models. I'm trying to get people to think of it as, you know, project knowledge. So that's what everybody has in their heads, and then they start emailing it and they put attachments and all that stuff. So that's what BuilderBox is trying to resolve. I mentioned the hackathon earlier because this is something that very much was born off of a hackathon. In fact, the second ever AEC hackathon happened down at Menlo Park at Facebook headquarters almost exactly 3 years ago. And I went to that event with these frustrations in mind and haven't been tasked by my employer, find us an information management solution. So we looked at Submittal Exchange, we looked at Procore, we looked at Nuforma, we looked at all these things. And then, you know, we started looking at cloud solutions. There is your plan grids, your bridges, your field lens. Okay, so now I'm to 7 different databases with 7 different logins and 7 different passwords. Give me a break. So I went to this hackathon not really knowing what to expect, except that I had just had an experience right before that weekend. I went hiking with some friends. We climbed Mount St. Helens. And we did things like look at Google Maps to figure out where we were going, buy a bunch of supplies through Amazon. We posted video and pictures on YouTube and Pinterest. And let me tell you about Pinterest. If you've ever traveled somewhere, you know, anytime that I go to a new city, I go to my wife's Pinterest, and she's got a nice board of bars, restaurants, and cool activities to do. It's like awesome, right? So I realized, why is my digital life so accessible and so great, and I can pull out my phone and I have just this information is at my fingertips, and I get to work on Monday morning after my hike, and I have to open up email attachments and save them somewhere, and I know that the project engineer on the job just did the exact same thing on his computer, and now they've put it on the network. Now we've got which one's the right version. So the hackathon format is that you get up on the stage on a Friday night after you've had a couple of beers, and you rant and rave, and then you coalesce and you make teams, and this guy walks up to me, his name was Vishal, and he says to me, I used to be a project engineer, had the exact same problem. I have a team of 11 programmers waiting for us to tell them what to do. Do you want to get together and come up with something? So I said, you bet. And over the course of a weekend, because we were at Facebook, I decided that what we should do is to put together a Facebook-like type of environment where I could actually share a model. Instead of just a picture, I want to be able to share a model, and I want to be able to like it, and I want to be able to comment, and I want to be able to be notified when people do stuff with it, just like I do with Facebook. So I realized I haven't emailed a picture of my daughter to my parents in years. I post it, and they look at it whenever they want to look at it. So we had some fits and starts. You know, the hackathons, things have to be open source, so we deployed BIM server, and we're using IFC files, which cost a lot of dough moments. But ultimately, at the end of the week, we won our category because we deployed a product that was looking at IFC files. Literally, you can spin these things around inside of a timeline. So that started growing and growing, and 3 years later, we have a product. And that product is called BuilderBox. And essentially, it's all those workflows that you saw earlier, all unified into one location. Now, when I say unified, I understand that we're not going to replace a lot of things. Like, there's a way to do your time cards in this. Maybe as a company, you have a time card system. Well, we've got an open API. We can talk to anything. That's the philosophy that we've taken. So, for example, we use it extensively for BIM coordination. There's a workflow where we can directly put in our screenshots from Navisworks, assign responsibility to them, assign a due date, and people get notified, people can follow it. If you see something coming through the screen, you know, you're looking at your project and you something, you've got nothing to do with this, but you happen to know something about it, you can comment. It's transparent. It doesn't matter that it didn't get emailed to you. You are part of this loop, so you get access to this information. You can choose to follow it, comment, etc. You know, you can report all these things out. You can sort items by who's responsible for these things. Not dissimilar to like a submittal exchange kind of a thing, just I think a lot more friendly. You can create a submittal that actually is a database entry. It might have an attachment, but it's not a PDF with all the submittal information in it. Therefore, you can search. You can, more importantly, it's not that you can search, you can find stuff. You can archive a project altogether. You can create a plan room with any folders you want. Or if you use something like PlanGrid and you really like it, or if you look something, you really like Bluebeam, we offer an integration for that so that your folders show up here and it's not another copy, but rather a window into what your Bluebeam Studio is doing. Lots of integrations. We keep coming up with more all the time. Of course, mobile access. Right now, the site is all HTML based, so it's very accessible on mobile devices, but we've got some mobile apps that are specific for workflows that are going to be deployed. And because this is a Revit group, I wanted to show you a little bit into the sandbox and a little bit into the development, but the ability to tie submittal information from the live database submittal into an object in Revit, the ability to create a view that happens to be an RFI response and gets tracked as such. Same thing with Navisworks. Being able to export out all your clash reports, being able to export out your saved viewpoints to automatically create a VRFI, virtual RFI, for those of you who don't know what that is, directly from Navisworks. And in the future, we're even going to be putting the ability to look at a model in the browser. Now, that we're negotiating with Assemble right now. They're very expensive. The last thing I want to do is force you to use something that's really expensive to get function out of this. And the reason why I don't want to do that is because I told you that if this didn't convince you, the pricing might. If anybody here has got any experience with BIM 360, field, plan, docs, whatever they're calling it this week, with Procore, with Nuforma, you know that you've not been treated like an adult when you ask for a proposal and you've asked for pricing. So we're going to do the absolute opposite. I'm going to show you the pricing right here. And it's free. Now, granted, with the free one, you're not going to be able to do that much. I really want you to get into the advanced one. That's where the meat is on the system. But the reality is that a small company, architecture firm that wants to manage RFIs and wants to manage submittals, they can deal with just a small business account, or sometimes even a free one, and get a lot of benefit out of it. There's another differentiator. I overheard a conversation earlier about how BIM 360 is going to ask you to pay for all your collaborators. Unlimited collaborators, free. The reason for that is because I, as an end user, do not want to be in the business of managing email addresses for people that don't work for me. So that is a very important piece of the puzzle for me, and everybody at BuilderBox, we're in agreement that that's going to be the case. We're always going to keep that free and unlimited. That means that your consultants, your clients, Your subcontractors, you don't have to worry about paying for a license for them. Also, you get 14 days for free to begin with, and then they'll ask you to put in some information, but if you use this promo code over there, you'll get 60 days for free on me of the advanced. On top of that, you get free implementation and support directly from me. So the only thing that I would ask is that if anybody does try this, and you reach out and you want me to help you try and deploy and take a look at this, I would love a testimonial. I would love to get the word out. This is sitting on top of AWS, Amazon Web Services. The server infrastructure is robust, it's up, it's running. You can get started for free. You don't even have to put your credit card information whatsoever. You don't need a VAR to draw up a proposal and sign you up. You can do it yourself online. So that is what BuilderBox is. I will be very happy to answer any questions about it at the end of the meeting. I'll be here. So communicate effectively, document everything that you do, and make decisions that are not just your gut instinct, but because you've got data about it. That's what this is all about. So anyway, with that said, Jason Herbst, please come on up and let's talk about Dynamo, which is what you really want to hear. And go.
So, thank you guys for coming. My name is Jason. Like David mentioned before, if you saw the blurb up there, I've been an Autodesk instructor, mainly AutoCAD and Revit, for about 17 years now. I really like the software. It's a lot of fun for me to do. I've worked at community college back in Spokane. We're from Spokane. I've worked at a couple of different Autodesk resellers. I've also done some production work here and there as well. So I really like the software. I really like to talk about the software. And I really like to talk about what's going to make the software better. Okay? The software that we're going to make better, and Lana and I were talking earlier. What was that word that started with an E that we were talking about? What did you want the software to be more of? Be more efficient. So that really tied in with what David was talking about. What do you do with your model? What do you do with your Revit model? What do you try and put into it? Try to put data and information into it. How good is a whole big pile of data if you can't do anything with it? It's just a big pile of data. What's your database worth if you can't pull any information that's usable to you out of that? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what Dynamo is. We're going to talk about where it came from. Okay? There's a product that you guys may have had experience with in years past that had Dynamo in it before it was all by itself. Where are we going to get some resources for Dynamo? I want to do it. Where do I get more of it? Okay, that's going to be another part. I'm going to share with you a couple links on how to go find it. What's possible with Dynamo? There are so many cool things that are possible with Dynamo right now. So many cool things. There are buildings out there that are so complex and so beautiful to look at and were probably made with Dynamo. But in your everyday life, in your day-to-day life working in an architecture office, who does work that looks like Frank Gehry or Zaha Hadid every day? Right? So I'm not going to concentrate on what we can take from Dynamo and shove into Revit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a model that everybody has access to. Everybody that has a copy of a version of Revit for the last 4, 5, 6 years, I'm going to use the sample file in Revit. Right? So it's something that you guys have access to. Okay? So what can we do with Dynamo? What's possible? I'm going to show you a whole bunch of stuff that we're not going to do today, and then I'm going to show you the stuff that we are going to do today. So what are we going to do with Dynamo today? So let's talk a little bit about what Dynamo is first. After I click, what is Dynamo? It's an open source graphical programming for design that ships with Revit. Anybody heard of Dynamo Studio? What's the difference between Dynamo Studio and the Dynamo that comes with Revit? Yeah, thank you. What is it, like $295 or $195, something like that. So you can use the one that comes with Revit. As soon as you fire it up, it's hooked to Revit. That's pretty slick. Okay? The one, there's the Dynamo Studio. So if you don't have Revit, maybe you're just a, who knows what the programming language is that I can do custom programming in? Python. Okay? So if maybe you have a Python person that's back at your office, that Python person says, I don't really care about Revit. You can have Revit. I just want to do this cool programming stuff for it. So you can get them a seat of that. It's a lot cheaper that way. So it's also, what does it do? It extends our building information in all this data in a logical way that we can then do things with. You ever go to a meeting and ask for parameter values? What's the parameter value of that room? Right? No, you don't. Somebody's going to say, what's the square footage? What's the volume? okay? So it's almost like we're going to be interpreting some of that data. Make that whole pile of data, right? I'm going to sound like my dad for a minute. Garbage in is garbage out, right? So I can have a whole great big pile of garbage and no way to interact with it. Dynamo, what I'm going to show you today, is going to help us to interact with that big pile of data that we're creating, okay? It's an open source tool. Anytime that I find open source software, there's people that take their own time to develop this stuff. They make parts and pieces for it. They're usually pretty proud of that stuff too, right? They want to be able to share this information with you. So there are people that are online. If you go to one of the resources I'm going to show you here in a little bit, they're proud of what they do. They want to share this stuff with you. Okay? Source for that, dynamobim.org. That's one of the resources that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Okay, I told you that I was going to talk, well maybe I didn't, I'm going to tell you now. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Dynamo. Dynamo itself started a while ago, right? Is anybody who remembers Project Vasari? Who used Project Vasari effectively to make anything that you got paid for? Okay. Project Vasari was a product that contained Dynamo. What did you use Project Vasari for? You had your hand up the longest. Somebody over here. What did you use? You used the tutorials the most. So in those tutorials, did you learn about any of the analysis stuff? Yeah, absolutely. So that was the Dynamo piece within Vasari. Then what you could do is you could make stuff, really cool stuff with the tractors and whatnot. I could take this whole series of columns and make them bigger sequentially or smaller because you do that every day at work, right? It was neat. We had all these bells and whistles that we could do, but then this thing that you ended up with went out for analysis. Why does that matter? What does it have to do with Vasari? Well, if you are not familiar with Giorgio Vasari, who was Giorgio Vasari? Has anybody read his book? Okay, when somebody says, have you read Giorgio Vasari's book, you can say yes, but not in English, because he was Italian. Okay, so his book, Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, that book is considered the very first book that was considered art history writing. He's the person that started writing about art history, okay? So what are people that are concerned about art history or history, what do they want? They want facts, they want figures, they want information, maybe they want data, right? So what do we do with this data? Why do we want this data? What is our purpose for this data? So we've got this product, this guy, Giorgio Vasari. He's interested in gaining information about a building. How did he go about, he lived in the 1500s, how did he go about getting that information? Did he Google it? Did he bring up Revit? No, he had to go and check it out. He had to go and maybe interview the people that were the builders. Maybe he had to interview the architect. Maybe he had to go and take measurements, and then they recorded it. When we create a Revit model, are we not doing that? We're making a thing and we're shoving information into it. This thing that we're making is a building. It could be this one. Okay? So what we're going to do with Dynamo is I want to talk to you about taking data from our Revit model and doing something with it. Today I want to talk about some room areas that we're going to use and how we can put them into an Excel document. Before we get to that part, though, I promised you that we would talk about some resources. So there's a couple of different resources that you can get at. These resources that are up here, I mentioned the dynamobim.org, okay? /learn, that's where you're going to get some tutorials and whatnot. Okay, the Dynamo primer. So hopefully you can make it past the tutorials with Dynamo. Okay. Then there's the Dynamo primer. It's like tutorials except quite a bit bigger. It's like a help file that's got some annotations and some videos that go with it. And then that stuff that I was telling you about, those people that are so proud of everything that they do, that they want to show you and share and answer questions, those are the forums. So forum.dynamobim.org. Okay, go there. Don't expect to get free stuff made for you. Have good questions to ask and be prepared to provide examples. There are folks out there that you will provide a Dynamo graph to them, and they'll tell you where you went wrong, and they'll help you learn how to make it better. Okay? Great, great resources. Once we fire up Dynamo, I'm going to show you where we can get at some more of them. What's possible? So who's been to any AU presentation on Dynamo? Anybody? When you left that, were they making building components? Were they making things that they shoved into Revit? Yeah, that's the one I went to a couple of years ago. It was a beautiful arcing bridge that curved this way and that way. Again, because you do that every day at work, right? I left that class, an hour and a half later, and I had this desire to do more Dynamo. I couldn't do it. I looked at it, and man, wow, there's a lot of stuff here, okay? And again, it seems to me, and we could do normal architecture using Dynamo, but why would I use Dynamo when I can just use Revit, okay? So I'm not going to show you how to make Darth Vader. I'm not going to show you how to make a version of the Gherkin or the cigar building, okay? What I do want to talk to you about is stuff that we're going to be using or could use upon leaving here. Okay? Now, I don't expect everybody to remember the graph that I'm going to show you exactly, but I'm going to step through the parts and pieces. What I want to do is I want to give you a little bit of oomph. I want you to go back to the office and really check it out. Because Dynamo can do some really, really phenomenal stuff. Now, we're not going to do this direction. We're not going to go from Dynamo into Revit. We're going to go from Revit, okay? We're going to go from Revit into Dynamo, and then we're going to eventually go out to Excel. So I don't want to say that I want to argue with David specifically about the large letter I. And it's funny because we didn't plan that. I swear, I made that the other day with the large I because I thought the I was important. We all know that we're doing a building, right? We all know that we're going to either make a model or we're going to manage, depending on how you want to play with that acronym. To me, I do find that the I is very important. But I also agree with what David said, that there's difference between data and knowledge. We're sitting in a huge pile of data right now. How do we know what's all around us? We go and we have to start parsing it out. How would we figure out where to go for a certain thing, certain topic? Okay? So that's all kind of part and parcel of what I want to show you today. How do we go through our model and take parts and pieces of it out that I want? Okay? I feel that the I is one of the most important things in building information modeling or management. Because the B and then the M are given, right? It's the I that is going to differentiate us. It's going to enable us to be more, what was that word again? Efficient. Absolutely. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch out to this. I used Bluebeam in the presentation mode, by the way, if you guys didn't know. Dave and I had to swap laptops because I didn't have Excel installed. So this is what we have. We're looking at Dynamo and we're looking at Revit. I promised you that we were going to use a file. We're going to use a model that everybody has access to. If everybody has this installed at some point, you've got this. In the last, I don't know, how long has this model been used as a sample? Since 2012. It's been a couple years. Okay, as far as Revit is concerned, there are a couple of things that have changed in the 2017 release. You'll notice up in the corner, I have two Dynamo things that we can play with. Okay, one of them is Dynamo. The other one's a Dynamo player. Anybody played with the Dynamo player yet? Nice. Dynamo player is spectacular. So I'm trying to tell you that I can do things to provide content to folks that don't even have Revit. I'm just going to give them an Excel file. Okay? Or maybe here's somebody that uses Revit that doesn't know Dynamo. So we're the opposite side. So the Dynamo player allows us to just play a Dynamo graph. Okay? I'm going to get to that later on. But what I do want to show you is how we fire up Dynamo. I need to, since this is the version of Dynamo that comes with Revit, I need to fire it off inside of Revit. It has been moved. Okay? When you install Dynamo, it used to be on a different tab. What other tab was it on before? Was it Dynamo? I think I saw it on add-ins. It might have been on extensions before. Anyway, for now, and I have no idea if the 2018 version, if it still resides here, Manage tab, okay? Manage tab of the ribbon, and then Dynamo. Okay, I fired this once already, so what's going to happen is it should open right to Dynamo. I have two versions of Dynamo I've got 0.9 and 1.2 or something to that effect. Upon first starting your computer, upon first starting Revit, and then kicking off Dynamo, it's going to ask you which version you want. Okay? There's a couple of reasons for that. And anybody have a standing ovation? I'm going to restart this real quick. Let's try that one more. No. Let's let it finish turning off this time. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So in the event that I had something go south in this presentation, I had an offer earlier. She's not making eye contact. To do some tap dancing. And I have a witness. Thank you very much. Once we get this fired back up, I'm going to hop back in. That's what it was, I think. Yeah. Well, live software demo. Okay. So as far as parts and pieces of Revit or of Dynamo are concerned, I want to take you a little bit through what the parts and pieces are called. Parts and pieces of Dynamo. I clicked on it more than once. Yeah, I do. Okay. So parts and pieces of Dynamo. I mentioned a Dynamo graph a little bit ago. Okay. A Dynamo graph is, fingers crossed for me, please. A Dynamo graph is how they refer to what we see on screen when I'm using Dynamo. I have two different view modes in Dynamo. The first view mode is this graph mode. Okay, so that allows me to interact with what are called nodes. The nodes are the things, these little programming blocks that I can bring in that I can turn on or off, and they have an input and an output. Sometimes just an output, but they have to have some sort of outlet. All right. Anybody a betting person? Okay. I actually did all that so I could show you this dialog box. That's the one that we're going to be able to decide which version I want to use. The reason that I'm offered that is because the folks that make the nodes or make packages of these nodes will oftentimes specify them for specific versions or builds of Dynamo. And then this will allow me, if I need to, if I've got one that works with 0.9.1, then I can go use that one. I used 1.2.1. Now, when I first fire it up, it will take just a second to fire up. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way that it goes. Okay, once, I think that gets an applause. This is Dynamo. It is a screen hog. Okay? What I mean by Dynamo being a screen hog, it's best done with two monitors. Okay, I can still interact with Revit, but this is going to be on top. Okay? It likes to live on top. That's just the factory default setting. Okay. So I'm going to be popping back and forth between Dynamo and Revit just a little bit. I'm going to spend most of the time in Dynamo. This is our Dynamo interface. We've got our drop-down menus up at the top. You'll notice one of them says Packages. We're going to get into Packages here in just a little bit. Okay? Right in the middle I have, this should be pretty common. If you've opened up an Autodesk piece of software in the last, 5 or 10 years, you're going to see that we've got some information here right in the middle. What do I want to do? Okay? This side, what we've got is we've got some common files, the ones that I've opened recently, the ones that I've been interacting with recently. Okay? Those live over here. Okay? On the right-hand side, this is where I can go and get access to that information. If you did not write down, which I didn't expect you to, or if you did not take a picture of the links I had on that previous slide, all of it's right here. Go ahead, fire up Revit. Go to the Manage tab of the ribbon, fire up Dynamo. All of that information that I showed you is right there on that right-hand column. Okay? Tons of good information there. There is so much information there. Okay, should we start a Dynamo project or start a Dynamo graph? Let's just start a real basic one. I'm going to create a new Dynamo graph. That's it. I'm looking at a Dynamo graph right now. There's no content in this Dynamo graph. I have the ability to add all the content that I want. Please notice in the upper right-hand corner. The upper right-hand corner, this is going to throw some of you if you're not paying attention. I've got a 3D mode or a 3D background mode, and then I've got the graph view. Notice that the graph view, slightly blue, that means that's the one that's active. Okay? When I am actually using Dynamo to push from Dynamo into Revit and create content in Revit, Revit then reports back what that content looks like. So in the background, I'm going to have the structure. So that couple slides ago when I showed you the Darth Vader and the Gherkin building and all that, okay, that had the geometry behind it and then a graph on top of it. You can cause them to switch by switching those two. So you can actively see. So when I said that Dynamo's a screen hog, okay, it's going to give you some feedback when you're working with 3D content that you're creating over in Revit. You're going to find up here, File, Edit, View. Okay, these are the things that you're used to seeing. Okay? This one called Packages. Packages responds to all of this stuff over here. Okay? Yours, upon opening it, may look a little bit different than the one that I've got. You'll notice that there's one that says Mantis. Mantis Shrimp, Arcalab, Mantis Shrimp, Mandrill. There's one called Clockwork, one called QR Coder, one called Rhythm, one called Springs. Okay? These are what are called packages. Packages are those people that are really proud of their software, or proud of their programming, and they want to help you add to the software. What they do is they take this package of stuff and they throw it out there. I've got one package, the QR code one, I think is 4 or 5 different items. The Clockwork, I think is like 135, if I'm remembering right. Now, I mentioned before that there's different versions, right? You watch me open up that second version. Up at the top, notice that there's a little green circle, okay? That little green circle that lives up here, this little green circle right here, means that there are some potential issues with some of the packages that I have loaded. Remember, though, I have packages loaded from the previous version and the current version. That's just letting me know that there's some stuff that might not work, okay? Dynamo's nice. It will tell us when stuff doesn't work. It just throws an error code for us. Okay, the basics of Dynamo. What I do is I come over here, I start a new project, okay? In this case, it's a graph, and then I add nodes. The easiest way to me, the best way to create a node, just a blank generic one, is a double click. Notice it says code block right there. What kind of code can go in there? Python, thank you very much. I can use, well, I can't. I've got a guy back at our office that does Python like mad. It's awesome. It's great working with a developer. Hey, do you think we can maybe try to, and then he says either yes or no. And then when he says no, is it that it's not possible, or is it just that you can't do it? And then it gets done. Okay. It's awesome. Okay, so I just made a code block. What can we do with the code block? Well, we can do dang near anything with this code block. I'd like to make a list. Who does computer programming type stuff in here? Developer type stuff? I'm going to be talking so below where you're at. Please don't make fun of me. Okay? We're going to be talking about lists and how basic is a list in computer programming. It's one of the main things. If I've got more than one thing, it's a list. Okay? So I need to know where to find that list, though. Notice that I went to that search field in the upper left-hand side, and I typed list. So I'm looking at this right here. I hover my cursor on it. It gives me a tooltip. It makes a new list out of the given inputs. Nice. I'm going to click on it once. Notice that it places it roughly in the center of the screen, regardless of where I'm, or dependent on where I'm zoomed into. Okay, so I've got a list. I've got a code block. Awesome. So let's just say, this is kind of important. List 1, list, we'll call it list 0. And then when I put a semicolon and enter, okay, what that allows me to do is create another line if I want. So I can have more than one thing. I'm creating a list, so lists are usually more than one thing. I'm going to hit enter. List 2. Close the quotes. Semicolon. I'm going to hit enter one more time. I'm going to do this one more time. List. I'm just making this up as we go. Okay? And I'm going to close out with the semicolon. When I click out of here, now you notice that I've got these two outputs that showed up. Okay? That first one showed up right about here. When I just clicked out of it after the first time. My list create. I've got more than one item in this list. So I need to add 2 more. What do you think I'd click on? There's a little plus button. So I'm going to add a couple more of these things. Now, this is going to be the hardest thing I'm going to show you all day. Everybody bring your thinking shoes today, because this is tough. All right, everybody up here. I need to connect one to the other. Click and click. Got it? I'm going to click that list, that text that's representing that list item. I'm going to bring it over here. Neat. What did it do? What did I just do? Somebody that does programming, what did I just do? I made a list out of those 3 things. Right? How do I know that I need to be able to watch this? Okay. I want to watch. So I go and I grab this watch node and I click once. And what that does is that allows me, in most cases, to observe what I'm doing. In this case, I'm not creating 3D content that's pushing out to Revit to be showed in the background. Not going to do that. Okay? So how do I confirm that I'm doing something? Now, it was set to run automatically. When I start a new graph, it's set to run. I just changed it. It's down in the corner here where it says run. I changed it to manual, but it was on automatic to begin with. Anytime I make a change, anytime that Dynamo says, you know what, it makes sense, now I'm going to run it. So if you want that, that's fine. Or I can turn it to manual. So my choices are automatic or manual. At this point, let's say manual. I'm going to run it. I know normally when we do stuff in Revit, for people that are not used to Revit, and I do something cool, I get oohs and ahs. But this is not even really worth it, right? I mean, yeah, you made a list. I got the programmer guy sitting, oh, God, why am I here? Okay, this is the basis. This is the foundation for what I want to show you. What I did was I just took a Revit node and another Revit node and another Revit node. I put information from this one, I lined it up in this one, and I displayed it in that one. Isn't that what programming is? I tell it what I want, I show it how to do it, and hopefully something comes out of the end, at the end that I like. Okay? Now, a couple things I can do. I can grab all of those. Oh, did you see that? I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to go from my right to my left. Look at that box, that rectangle. I'm going to start at my top left, and I'm going to go to my bottom right. Look at that rectangle. Is that a window and a crossing? Are we using an Autodesk piece of software? They try to kind of keep some stuff together. That allowed me to create or to grab all 3 of those pieces. I can grab one piece at a time and move them around if that's what I want. I can go back and I can grab all of those. I can right-click, and I can say create group. It assigns a color, allows me to give it a name, and now when I need to move stuff around, I just go over here. Okay? Hit escape to deselect. Oops, I'm sorry. Click out to deselect. Don't have to hit escape. Away we go. So this is a very basic one. This is a very simple one. Super easy. Okay? All my input showed up in a list. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm not going to save any changes, and I'm going to open the one that I really want to show you today. So I don't want to save any changes, otherwise I could. So rooms by area. And if we have a minute, I want to show you this QR test one. This one's kind of a sandbox one that I was just playing around with. But rooms by area. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up. Okay. Remember I said everything is going to be easy today? That we're not going to do anything complicated? That's easy. That's a fairly simple Dynamo graph. It's not doing a whole heck of a lot, but what I would like to do is take you through the different chunks of what it's doing. Okay? So what I tried to do was divide this up in a way that I could explain it better. Okay? There are things in each of these groups that are important to the whole. What we're going to do is this last one, the blue one on the far right-hand side, that's called Excel Write to File. I'm going to take all of the stuff that I'm monkeying around with here in the middle, and I'm going to shove it out to an Excel file. Okay? That's my goal. What stuff is this that I'm going to take out? So remember, we're going to go to this meeting, and we're going to ask somebody that doesn't do Revit about parameters, right? What do they know? What's a parameter? Well, I mean, they know probably what the word means, but how does that word relate to here? So what I want to do with this is I want to grab the area and volume and the name and the number of some rooms, of room objects in that Revit model. Being that I started the sample file and then I started Dynamo, Dynamo knows that it should be paying attention to that sample file, whatever file I have open. You're thinking, so I've got this Dynamo graph, and then I open up another file. Can I run the same Dynamo graph on another? Wow. Now let's go back to that Dynamo player thing that I talked about. Every time. If I want to run this graph on 50 different projects, open up the project, open up Dynamo. Better yet, open up the player and click play. Out it goes. Okay? Now, there's some things in this script, or excuse me, in this graph that I would change, but that's the beautiful thing. When's the code done? Potentially never. You're always going to look at it and you're going to go, oh, but if, okay? Dynamo's great for that. So you might have seen in my list that this one's called Rooms by Area. I had one called Rooms by Area Working. That's the one that I play with that I can set to the side. This is my final one for now. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing. I said we're going to take rooms, okay? Let's talk about what we're getting, what we're going to get, okay? How would I go about finding this thing called categories? This node called categories. I could go and I could search. I could just type in categories and that would come up. But then this one's called categories and this one's called all elements of categories. Okay, can somebody please tell me how many different categories of objects, of elements, how many different categories are there in this Revit model? Do you know? There's a couple. This is the cool thing about Dynamo in that it's pointed at the project that I have open, and it knows that these are all the potential things that are in here. All of these different categories. So I went down and I found the one called rooms, and I said rooms. Notice that when I hover on this, it's going to give me a tooltip. And that one says all built-in categories. All the categories that are built into Revit. At this point, I can go and pick from that drop-down list. Awesome. Now when I hover over this part, that says the selected category. What this is doing, what this node is telling me, it's telling me what it wants, and then it's going to tell me, well, when I'm outputting, this is what it's going to give you. Why is that important? So when I hover on this one, it says the selected category. When I hover over the one called category, it says the category. What do I need to take from there to put it into there? Well, I need a category. Your ins and your outs do have to match the type, okay? And it'll tell you about what kind of input and output that you need on every one of those. So then what I did was I said, you know what? I need to know what all of these rooms are. So I assigned a watch to this. Why is this not populated like that list was? Thank you, because this has not been run yet. Please notice down here, the bottom left-hand corner, it says manual. Okay? So I'm not going to run it for a little bit. I want to show you some more stuff first. So once I hit run, this is going to populate. Okay. So back to that whole parameters thing. Again, what are these parameters that we want? Dynamo goes from left to right and top to bottom. So when I made the list out of the parameters that I wanted the number to be first, followed by the name, followed by the area, followed by the volume. These are the parameters that I want. Are there any other parameters that I could grab for a room? A room object in Revit. So I got volume. What level is it associated with? Top and bottom bounding. maybe. There's a ton of different parameters that we could assign. And these are just the stock ones. Do we have any shared parameters? Maybe a custom parameter that I want to assign to it? Okay, so I've got these room objects. I want the number, the name, the area, and the volume. Okay. I gave it, if we plug this here, Revit elements. So what is this Revit element? What kind of element did we grab? Rooms, okay? I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take that information and I want to put that room object, I want to feed it to this element get parameter value by name. All that did was it said, what parameter do you want? I had to feed it what parameter. So I could have double-clicked and created a code block, parentheses, whatever the text said, parentheses, end it with a semicolon. That makes it a string. Or, just for giggles, and I'm doing this presentation, what's that node called? String. I just type in stuff. It assumes the quotes and that semicolon for me. So I just wanted to use a couple of different things to get the same effect for us. Okay. I've got all these eaches, all these single things. Okay? And I want to be able to create a list out of these separate things. Okay? I take all of these eaches, all of these element parameters, I take that parameter and I feed it down into this list create. Okay? Now we're getting into that lilac colored one. That one I called lists and sorting. So I'm going to take all these disparate pieces and we're going to funnel it down. If you looked at the whole overall graph earlier, it kind of funneled down into my main output. That's not always how they're shaped, but if you think about it that way, I need to gather all this information and somehow get it into a list so I can then, well, I can sort it, and then I can join it, and then I can transpose it. Oh my goodness, look at all this stuff that we're doing. So I grabbed all four of those different parameter values. I took those parameter values and I put it in the middle, and that's a list. I want to create a list. That's fair. Okay, so before I just typed in words. It didn't really matter. Now, though, I'm taking information from Revit and I'm pulling that in to this list. So that is a list join. When I join that list, I take all of those lists and I make them into one list. Okay? That next one, second to the last one in the purple box, says list transpose. I'm going to pick on my programmer. What does transpose do? Exactly. So I'm going out to Excel. Excel is rows and columns, right? So all my information came in this way. I needed that information to come in this way. It was all coming in across that row. I needed it to be in a column, so I had to transpose that. Okay? Then later on, in the section right above it, I'm going to show you how we can actually make another list and we can chop it up, not transpose it, and turn it into column titles. This seems like a lot of work, but one person has to do it once, and then we can just keep reusing it. Okay? So what I've done is I've taken this series of lists, these four lists right here, I've joined them together. I did what's called a transpose. So it took that row and it turned it into a bunch of columns, and then I had to have another list join. Right? Column names. This one was interesting. This one, I kind of enjoyed doing this piece. I enjoyed doing all of it, but this one was an interesting one to me because felt like I was just getting the hang of this transpose business, and then it comes, I don't need it to transpose anymore. But I do need it to chop into several different pieces. So what I did was I have that code block that's on the far left-hand side of the top lilac-colored one. Those are my column names. Okay? I also threw in right underneath it one called date, time, now. That one is the one that's been giving me the most trouble out of this whole thing. My goal for this was to be able to hit go, and out comes an Excel file with the current date and time. I want it to be that current date and time every time. Okay? That one's giving me a little bit of heartburn, but that's okay. It's programming. We can go back and make more cool stuff. So I took that list create, and then I took it over into the block called list chop. And it's going to take that list and it's going to chop it up. That other input that I have, you notice has the number 5 by it. Okay? That's how many chunks I'm going to chop this list up into. So again, I don't have to transpose that one because I do want it to actually reside across the top of my Excel document that I'm about to create. Okay. So I've got these lists. I've got them in an order that I want. I've got them transposed so that they're going to show up rows and columns like I want. Now, let's look at what we can do with writing to Excel. When I go to write to Excel, I started on this chunk backwards. Well, not really backwards. I started with the end in mind. My end was writing out to an Excel file. So I went and I found this node that was already programmed for us. That node wants a file path, a sheet name, start row, start column, date, the data, and then the other one down there, I've got a Boolean operation assigned to that. That's a yes or a no. Okay? That one I'm playing with overwriting. I want it to overwrite, but it's vexing me right now. I want every time that you run it, I want it to create a brand new Excel file and write right over the top of it. Okay? I'm not there yet, but we're close. Okay, that string just needs a file path. That's the location on this particular computer right now. I have a string called areas right now. Okay, that's going to be my sheet name. The file name is back in the top one, area test. Okay, now that number, notice that I've got that number, one number going to two different locations, right? A number is a number. I can feed it to as many things as I want, provided that I need that same number. So I took the number 0, which in Excel, where would be, think about where's position 0 in Excel? A1, right? So that's where I want to start it. So cell A1, we're going to call 0. So that's my start row, my start column. My data, see that line that goes off to the other side? That's the end result of my lists. All those lists that I chopped up, sorted, massaged, and tweaked, and shoved into there. Now what's going to happen is when I click run, in this file location, and let's go there real quick. I don't know about real quick, but we'll get there. So that one, me, Dynamo, and I've got a folder called Excel. Okay, what I want you guys to pay attention to right now is the folder called Excel does not contain an Excel file, right, in what we're looking at. There might be one in those folders, but not right here. Okay, I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to zoom out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it. Ready? Not very exciting. What'd you think? How'd we do? Ooh, what's happening down at the bottom of my screen? Is anything flashing? I haven't looked yet. There's an Excel, oh good, I'm so glad I didn't even want to look. Okay, so that Excel document, and please don't make fun of me. I didn't have PowerPoint, and you're going to make fun of the version of Excel I have on here too. We use Google Apps and other stuff. Okay, I'll maximize this out. Maybe. Here we go. What's the date today? And what time is it? Is that right? Nice. Awesome. That's pretty close anyway. So what did we just do? I took this project that realistically I have to know nothing about. What I need to know is what are the areas and volumes of a room, of all these different rooms. Okay? This folder, or this project's in metric. Those are in square meters, by the way. Okay? So I took this project that I don't know anything about. I have not been involved in the design, the modeling, none of it, but I need this information. So I can take this Dynamo graph that I've just created, and I can go through everything that is a Revit room that has those parameters will then be able to be shoved through into something that's usable by somebody that doesn't even have Revit. Maybe this is going to go out to a flooring contractor. Ooh, gosh, can you imagine that? You don't even have to send them your model. All I have to do is click print or email and say, here you go, Mr. Flooring Contractor. Bingo. Here's all the room numbers, the room names, and the area. I don't know why the flooring person would need volume, but you know. Okay. This particular piece of Dynamo, I just really want to stress. We're not going to be going out and create, or we didn't go out and create 3D content that I push into Revit. Okay? There's too many different things that we can do. What I wanted to focus on today was the ability to take data that's already present, that might be hiding somewhere in this great big pile of data, right? And show you how we can extract that out in a fairly painless way, okay? What I'm going to do also, do you guys have any questions about that? I mean, it's a pretty simple process. Yes, sir. That was for my own. Thank you. That's a great question. So let's go take a look at that. All of the watch nodes were just so that I can kind of check and see what's going on. Absolutely. These are totally up to you. If you're confident that you've got rooms, you don't need to have those there. And think of those watch nodes, by the way, as pass-through. It's not going to affect the data coming in or the data going out. I should say it shouldn't. That's a great question. So I have a room schedule, and I can go to that schedule view, and I can say export. Okay. I'm aiming for I just use this as an example, but let's say that you're not super great at Revit yet. Maybe you're just an intern, this is your first whack at it. You don't even know how to switch to the view, okay? But the Dynamo player is residing right there, and you can just click play. So absolutely, no, that's a great question. Why not just export your room schedule? Well, I don't have a room schedule, but I've got this Dynamo script. And this is just this is the tip of the iceberg as far as stuff that you can do in Revit. It's like I'm trying to show you guys a whole new language and then expect you to write poetry right now.
Or, crazy idea.
Yeah?
Stuff an Excel spreadsheet onto a file and a folder. You make it an export that's going to, I don't know, like a cloud-based system where you have a principal that doesn't use Revit that can log in and see a dashboard with the current programming of square footages based on the Revit file you last saved.
That's a spectacular idea. Now, so I have another graph. This is my sandbox graph, and this kind of has to do with what David's talking about. So one other thing that we've been playing with, so this bucket that David's talking about, who has not heard of AWS? Good answer for Seattle. Amazon Web Services. Everything that you touch. When's the last time you watched Netflix? Or streamed anything, or did anything online? You've probably touched AWS at some point. Okay, so there's these things, S3 buckets. It's a place I can keep stuff, real cheap. Okay, it's like a server online. It's cloud storage. So maybe somebody like David says, you know, I want to have something that, well, when the sheet comes out, I'll have a QR code on it. What do you do with QR codes? Scan them. They'll take you to a link. Maybe that link is going to show you where to download it. I don't know. Okay. So what I have over here, and you'll notice there's a lot of this is disconnected, and you see those yellow ones? That means that there's an error, or I haven't given it the right information yet. So what I could do is I could run this one. Boom, I get more yellow boxes, but more importantly, I get a what? Get a QR code. Where's that QR code pointed? Anybody know? Just random? Just made it up? I made a code block. That's exactly where it's pointed. I can make the software make an image that image is also saved to a folder that's on, it's saved local here. But what David's getting at is it doesn't have to save local. It can save to wherever I tell it to go. That could actually be the destination folder for it. Would it be handy for you to be able to click one button that causes Revit to print, placing a QR code, and then whoever can grab that QR code, what information would you assign to that QR code? You mean you don't want people building off of old documents? So what David just asked, when upon scanning that code, screen's going to flash green, what does it mean? It means you're good to go. Screen flashes red. You should do it like they used to do on the old Family Feud, where they did the big X. That would be awesome. We'll work on that one. But you get the idea. I scan it, it's green. Green means go. Green's only bad if you're eating bananas. Okay? So there's lots of stuff that we can do with this. And the example that I provided today is just tip of the iceberg. It really, really is just tip of the iceberg what you can do. Again, consider that you're going to be learning a language, but it's kind of through a translator. It allows me to drag and drop these pieces that I don't even have to know. I'm not a programmer. That's why I've been asking you questions. But I can do this stuff. Okay? Using those resources that I showed you, you can do this stuff. What's that website that's got a whole bunch of videos and stuff on it? Dynamo Talk. Awesome. This was taken partially from an example that they did. I wanted to use the sample file because everybody has it. I wanted to do something that everybody could benefit from, even if, well, and if you didn't have a room schedule. And I wanted you to be able to go find resources so that you could copy this or that you could make your own variation of this, okay? Go learn this language and then go start writing poetry. Go write your opera. Go write your novel. Whatever it is. This is a phenomenal tool. Yes, sir?
So I apologize for cutting you off, but I'm sure that Jason will be happy to stay and answer questions if anybody wants to come down and hang out for a little bit, as I will be hanging out as well. But in the interest of respect of everybody else's time, we'll just wrap it up. So Jason, thank you very much.
So thank you guys very much for putting up with me. I hope you go do more Dynamo. Thank you.